UFC Qatar, Dan Hooker versus Arman Tsarukyan. Now, this is going to be a banger of a fight. I'm a fan of both these guys. Arman, very good fighter. Dan Hooker, always fun to watch. And it seems like in the past few years, he's really become a psycho, and, he just psychotically loves this fight game. And I don't know if you guys been watching Fight Week and seeing the interviews, but, Dan Hooker is totally different from how he was years ago. He's funny. It seems like he pisses a lot of people off, and he doesn't even know. They're like, you and Patty had something. He's like, really? Are we not good? I don't even remember. I don't know if this is just naturally him, but the character of Dan Hooker is extremely funny. Entertaining, fun to watch. Just that alone has been entertaining all week for me. And wouldn't it be something if Dan Hooker beats Arman Tsarukyan? And if he does, will he get a title shot? Arman had a title shot, said he was hurt, he missed weight, so the UFC was pissed. They didn't give him the title shot right away. So, what's going to happen here? Now, we know Arman is going to try to take him down and, probably finish him with a submission or ground and pound, but that is Arman's path to victory. Take Hooker down to the ground and get him out of there. Now, Dan Hooker needs to stuff the takedown, keep this on the feet, keep it kickboxing. That's Dan Hooker. Now, Dan Hooker seems to be one of these people who doesn't really get tired, and even when he's tired, he's going to be able to throw combinations and connect. One of my favorite fights is Dan Hooker versus Dustin Poirier. That fight was incredible. Back and forth, combos, both of them beat down. Both of them left a lot of themselves in the octagon that night. They were both beat to hell. But incredible fight. That's one of the greatest fights I've ever watched. These past few years, Dan Hooker just seems to get better and better and better. Just watching him in the corner in that fight where he was like, I love this shit, guys. Man, he is psychotic. In the greatest ways, he is psychotic. But seems like, he's doing well. When he's doing these interviews, he's laughing, he's enjoying himself. He went from a clean-cut guy, clean-shaven, to covered in tattoos, has the beard going. It's like he's a totally different person. It's funny how you could watch somebody grow, through the years and they become somebody totally different. But this seems like the authentic Dan Hooker. He is ready to get in there with Arman. Supposedly he does not like Arman. And he told the UFC, hey, let me get this guy out of your way. You guys don't like him. I'm going to go in there and get rid of him for you. So, wouldn't that be something? I can see this fight, Arman taking Dan down early. Maybe the first round, Dan's on his back. Gets to the second round. Arman's a little tired now. He stuffs the takedown. Dan keeps it on the feet and is piecing him up. That could happen. Or, I feel like Arman will shoot within the first minute of the fight. Try to get it down, but you do not want to get in a kickboxing fight with Dan Hooker. I don't see any path to victory for Arman if he does that. So he has to take Dan Hooker down. And he's got to take him down early and often. He's got to hold him down. He cannot let Dan Hooker get up to his feet, because when he does, he's going to have a lot of trouble with the hands and Dan's kicks. Like I said, if you've never seen Hooker fight, just watch that Dustin Poirier fight. Absolutely incredible. He almost had Dustin out of there a few times. But, Arman has to take this to the ground. He has to hold Dan on the floor and either submit him or ground and pound. But he has got to get him on the ground, and he has got to get him there often and keep him there and not allow him to get up. Dan Hooker has to stuff the takedown, keep this fight on the feet, keep Arman away from him, hit him with combos, kicks. But, punches and bunches is what he needs. And I feel like if this fight is on the feet, eventually Hooker will find the shot that will drop Arman. He could drop him and then, fall him to the ground and finish him. But we got to see how this plays out. Is Arman going to be able to get him to the ground and hold him there? That's the thing, because I think he can get Hooker down, but can he hold him there? And Dan Hooker is very, very good at getting back to his feet. Especially if he's on the side of the cage, he will get back to his feet. And, Hooker even said, like, hey, you want to wrestle? Go ahead. You think you're going to make me tired? But you're going to make both of us tired, which is very true. When you're wrestling a lot, all that, blood's going to your muscles. You need the oxygen to get to your muscles. Arman will get tired. If it's not after that first round, if he's grappling heavy, first 2 rounds, third, if they get into the 4th, 5th round, he will be tired. And Arman is very muscular. So we will see how this one plays out. Arman must take Dan Hooker down and keep him down to get the victory. Hooker must keep this on the feet. If he gets taken down, he needs to pop right back up. He needs to throw punches and bunches and kicks. I could see him throwing combinations and throwing a head kick up and catching Arman. We don't know how this one's going to play out, but I will tell you one thing. This is going to be a very entertaining fight. I could see it going back and forth. And, my prediction, I'm going to say Dan Hooker either wins by finish in the late rounds or wins by split decision. So we'll say Dan Hooker, late TKO, or wins by split decision. Official prediction.